So I would like to welcome you to the last reading in our second season of Stockbridge Library's online poetry series. The original series, started by John Gillespie, who was at the time president of the Board of Trustees of the library, was Medicine for the Soul. This season, season 2, which we'll be concluding today, was more focused on the refuge of witnessing. And we have had a variety of poets join us from across the country. And today we have the pleasure of having Ken Haas read for us. Ken's joining us from California. So again, poets from near and far. The format of the program, Ken and John will be in conversation, but before I turn the program over to them, I do want to thank all of you for another wonderful season. John, thanks to you for organizing and coming up with a great idea. And a little bit about our marvelous poet today, Ken Haas. Excuse me. Ken is the son of European immigrants, and he was born in New York City. He attended college and got his undergraduate degree. He attended law school and business school at Harvard University, and he received an MA in English literature at the University of Sussex in the UK. And it was there that he wrote his dissertation on Wallace Stevens. Ken has attended the Community of Writers on several occasions, where he is now on the board of directors, and he has studied with poets such as Sharon Olds, Bob Haas, Brenda Hillman, Lucille Clifton, and others. Ken's work has been nominated for a Pushcart Prize, has won the Betsy Colquitt Poetry Award, and has appeared in more than 50 literary journals and anthologies. So quite a list of accomplishments. Ken's first full-length poetry collection, Borrowed Light, won the 2020 Red Mountain Press Discovery Award, a 2021, there it is, a 2021 prize from the National Federation of Press Women, and was shortlisted for the 2021 Rubery Book Award and a category finalist for the 2022 Eric Hoffer Book Awards. So that's a little bit about Ken. Ken, thank you for joining us. John, thank you for hosting us, and I'll turn the program over to the two of you.
Yeah, Wendy, thanks. And thanks everyone who may be watching this as we finish season 2. It's been another great year of poetry and some poets that have read before, like Ken and Perry, and some new poets. So just to let everyone know, we're going to have a little change in format today. We're not going to go through the refuge and witnessing format that we usually do, and we're going to let Ken, who's crafted this program, just take it away and tell us what he's going to do.
Thanks, Wendy and John. So my partner of many years, Susan Claire Bonetto, lost her long battle with lymphoma last October 1st. John and his wife, Linda, were treasured friends of Susan's. In fact, knew her many years before I did. So I'm just very grateful to have a chance to honor Susan with this reading. It will be a form of witnessing, but as John said, somewhat different. Last week, June 20th, would have been Susan's 64th birthday. So I'm going to read 7 poems of mine about Susan. They're more or less chronological. The first 4 written while she was battling cancer, at least to some extent, and the remainder written after she passed. Some are tough, even I would say dark in parts, but that's how death and grief are, and poetry insists on the truth, and Susan was only interested in the truth. So regardless, these pieces, I think, speak most of all to our love, as well as to Susan's courage and ongoing presence. Susan grew up in Milwaukee, but traveled the world, her most favorite place being Fiji, where she lived for many years with her, and where her son was born, and where, we also had some magical times. This first poem is called Breath, and the reference toward the middle to a Spielberg film is to the film Close Encounters of the Third Kind. So, Breath. One oven of a night in Fiji, our bathing suits getting wetter, hanging out to dry. I dreamed peeling off my skin, but instead, once an hour, tiptoed back and forth along the foot of the bed to change sides, because her body had rolled over again, and I wanted to stay in its breath, in its cool on my face and chest, but also in its grace, the joy she cast even while sleeping, charged with the still spiced atoms of a world she had walked barefoot and impassioned. Wisconsin, Argentina, the islands, the bay. With our return to the mainland came the tumors and the science that said burn her inside. So the body I knew took form of those beings who wafted off the spaceship at the end of the Spielberg film, gaunt, hairless, bearing nothing but light, and the tones they had placed in our minds. Hands open upward, as if to say, your troubles, put them here. Oh yes, there are souls like this among us. Let me shuffle just a little bit more in the wee hours between window and door. Let me sleep in the last gasp of the dark cells that resemble me without her. The deniers now being roasted to smoke, bowing to a breath retaking its country. Let me inhale deeply the air of why I am here, with the mango, the gold dust, the tango, the snow.
Very nice.
Thanks. There haven't been many silver linings to the pandemic, but one might be that because humans have gone out a bit less, animals have gotten around a bit more. For example, penguins have been seen on the streets of Chicago, and here locally, the famed parrots of Telegraph Hill from the conure species have been seen more frequently in other parts of San Francisco. This poem is called When the Parrots Come. Two conures, South Americans bagged at birth, slipped their gilded cage here mid-90s, started a flock, numbering hundreds now. Eschewing the native flora, the laurel, the live oak, whose acorns the Ohlone ground to meal. They flit instead on saucer magnolia, date palm, power lines, all tangled over Telegraph Hill. 2020, fighting tumors, not asking on which side of her body's borders they were born or fed. Susan sees a pair of them, the parrots, testing our fire escape, a 6th floor rental miles west. They perch an hour, then zip off with a greening throng. Hoping they'll return, she puts out cashews, which is what she has. I say, honey, there's a reason why they chose our railing. Scouts, maybe lovers, stealing a moment, the virus, the warming, and cashews could bring gulls. So just leave things as they are. Whatever drew them might draw them again. Susan from the Midwest keeps on with the cashews. Having taken in red crowns, indigo eyes, opalescent beaks. Mostly, she says, they sat and looked away. Sometimes, though, they nuzzled, danced, hung upside down. From back east, I never see them. We welcome the new year. Everyone does. A week later, she says they came back for a spell, the parrots. I say, no cashews this time, sweetheart. She says, no, of course not.
Another good one.
Yep. So this next one, which appears in my book, Borrowed Light, is about one of the cancer treatments Susan took on, called an autologous stem cell transplant, which is effectively a bone marrow transplant that you get from yourself. This piece begins with a reference to Ponce de Leon, the Spanish conquistador who searched for the fountain of youth.
And what was the name of this? What was the name of this one again?
It's called The Scientist.
I just have to listen. I'm never good at picking them out of an index when that's okay.
Yeah.
Just go ahead.
It's probably in the middle somewhere.
Yeah.
Okay. The Scientist. Ponce was onto something, the magic of youth. Though South Florida, it turns out, not the place to search.
Oh yeah.
My love, whom the world needs more than it needs me, needs a bone marrow transplant. The collection of stem cells from her blood for reintroduction after extreme chemo. They are looking for the youngest cells, the uncorrupted. But on Tuesday, her count of these per the hemocytometer is 6, too low to even start the process. 25, they say, is the goal. 40 would be fabulous. They will search again Wednesday. A Filipino nurse named Teo tells her as she leaves that the young cells will come out of hiding if someone rubs the arches of her feet, which someone will be me that evening. After I research the concept like the scientist I am, discovering it to be ridiculous even by internet standards, where endorsed stimulants include sweet potatoes and weightlifting, but nothing remotely podiatric. Still, I do like her feet. Midwestern, optimistic, true. We start out a bit confused. Did he mean rub or massage? Top, side, or bottom? I show her a plastic card correlating regions of the foot sole to internal organs that a co-ed turned shaman gave me in the 60s after we shared an interesting night. My love is not convinced, though while pressing and squeezing for a full 40 minutes, I can't resist some attention to the base of her pinky toes, which apparently commune with her earlobes. She asks if chatting would break my concentration. Wednesday morning, the only number that means something isn't the Dow or how many runs the Giants scored, it's 79. Who knew that at my age, I could do anything to interest the young? Who knew how ready I had become to abandon science and play the goddamn Pied Piper? I see all those bright cells texting each other as they leave the comfort of the marrow for what my fingers have promised will be the role of their lives.
Amazing, amazing.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So Susan had top-notch medical care at UCSF, but in the end, her treatments didn't work. This poem was written a couple of weeks before she passed. She was in the hospital. The title is a play on the concept of the hereafter. It's called The Here Before. Someone needed to break the news. Her father had passed overnight. I drove early, as I had every day for months, as I would for 2 weeks more, to wait on a snaking line masked in the fog for visiting hours. She was sitting in the easy chair next to her bed, morphine drip hissing. I rolled the food cart away, pulled a folding chair up close, held her hand, called her younger sister 2 time zones east as arranged, passed her my phone, which she pressed to her ear, listening to a soft voice. Cancer had entered her brain. She could understand, but not speak. Her eyes filled and drained like they had no other purpose. These things that pretend they just happen, but we know otherwise. There is no good in them, none. No learning, no lining, no blessing. I squeezed next to my love in the padded chair. Her arms poured around me. I have never been held like that, not even the day I was born.
Ooh, ooh. Wow. Very, very, this is compelling. Thank you.
Thanks. I'll keep going. So Susan was absolutely heroic to her very last second. The poet Jack Gilbert wrote an iconic poem about his wife's death, where he compares his grief to carrying a large box that's too heavy, cumbersome, and awkward, but which he refuses to put down. This is my metaphor for grief. It's called kitchen sink. Grief, I'm being told, is just love with nowhere to go. Not helping. Though look at me, still brimming, plugged, metallic, no overflow hole. Glazed plates, egg cup, ladle, strainer, first marriage flatware, pizza cutter, apple slicer, choking in suds, cascading down cabinet doors. An inch of gritty broth flooding the linoleum, ferrying crumbs and shells under the stove, through the ironing board's piped leg. I'm fixture and tool, basin and ledge, though it's also my strange hand burned above the wrist, diving to pull the stopper, since the faucet won't shut up. Brooding torrent, endless drain, and it's my dazed bones kneeling in sweats and bare feet to sop the lagoon with old sheets wrung back in the sink, then sopped again, then wrung again, until the floor is glistening. And there it is, clouded and cool, my face before I knew her. So this next one takes its title from an old nursery rhyme about crows. The one that goes, one crow sorrow, two crows joy, etc. And it's called A Secret Never to Be Told. Months after I had cleared her clothes from our apartment and delivered them to a homeless shelter, as was her wish, I drove to our cabin in the mountains to gather her last shirts and sweaters, socks and tights, sneakers and slippers. I was weary of all the searching, finding, sorting, folding, weary even of the touching. I could not stomach even one more trip for charity. Death, you see, had made me a coward. I just jammed everything in 3 30-gallon black plastic bags, which I tied off tightly, left for next morning pickup at the end of the driveway, flanked by 6-foot banks of ice-skinned snow. An hour's nap later, I saw through the window that crows had come, torn open the bags, dragged their contents all over, confused perhaps by wisps of sweat and perfume, thinking who in his right mind would put anything but chicken bones and pizza crust in such beguiling sacks. One had her lace panties in its beak, shook it like a battle flag. Another was chewing the sleeve of her pineapple t-shirt. A third was back at the bags, manically scrounging for more. I walked out calmly with a shovel. The birds flew away. I had visions of leaving all just as it was for a next storm to bury, recollecting the debris after spring thaw, burning it in a pile turned biblical pillar of smoke, giving the ashes to the stream out back. Instead, I climbed the crusted banks, roamed the neighbors' yards and snowbound streets, picked up the pieces, placed and cinched them in new bags, left them as before. The birds came again and again. Again and again, I gathered, each time working more slowly, each time the pieces smaller, until the sun was gone and I stood by the last bags I owned, slightly less full. I stood there all night, the crows laughing and I laughing back, their amber eyes flashing in the new moon dark, neither stupid nor cruel, though I had thought them both. At first light, men with boots and gloves came in a green truck. One said good morning, another took the bags away.
Wow. Ooh.
And I'd like to end my poems with a piece that is about Susan's ongoing presence. She's still here for me and many of us in so many ways. This piece, predominantly about one of her favorite colors, is called Turquoise. When a poet friend asked if you left a scarf I could part with, said she would wear it on her walk to drought-worn Abbott's Lagoon, I brought her your tasseled merino, sharing with one still making words a cloth last worn only weeks before by one whose stories had all been told. November light sprayed the scarf's blue across a reverent shoreline, and memory took on the affection of living in the company of a color pressed palms turn unseen. The color a Dark Ages Frenchman coined turquoise, as if a lady in Constantinople whose eyes would guide him home. This color clung to the lucent wing of a beetle on its back, peeked from the lining of my coat, spangled a heron's beak, graced the buzz cut of a black girl jogging past, kissed the hem of the water where water used to be.
Fantastic. Really, thank you for sharing the poems. I appreciate your courage and clarity. So thank you.
Thanks, John. Susan was, among many other things, a story writer, starting with tales of her time in Fiji. She kept writing until she passed, including a very moving account called Granite Chief, published online in Change 7 magazine. It's a story about the second time she tried to ski a black diamond run, her second bout with lymphoma, and her second great love. She writes about going with me to ski in Tahoe and taking me to Fiji. And I'm quoting her, she called Fiji the place in this world where my heart was full, before my optimism broke into shards, before I lost my husband, my first love, to a lengthy illness, while our teenage son struggled through a brain tumor, before Ken appeared and proved that second love is a miracle in itself. So I'd like Susan to have the last, at least, literary word today. I'm happy to answer questions or just chit chat, but So I'm going to read some excerpts from one of the Fiji stories in her book, which is called Living Barefoot. And again, I'm quoting her now. Our story begins in Leluvia, the little island where we actually lived barefoot. I have not yet found a social or economic paradise in this world, but Leluvia is a paradise for those who love warm weather and tropical seas. This island almost doesn't exist. Its place in the world has only just been put onto an ocean chart. One of more than 300 islands that comprise the country of Fiji, it ranks among the smallest inhabited islands on Earth, 5 blocks long by 1 block wide. On the west side, there is a soft, sandy beach. The rest is thick green, tropical trees and bush. The sea is postcard aquamarine, fanning out to deeper blue waters. In 1987, the local chief, or Ratu, and his unskilled crew built simply, slowly, and with little capital investment, several double occupancy bures, Fijian-style huts made of thatch, along with 5 outhouses, a kitchen, a covered eating area, and a tiny shop for soda, beer, cigarettes, and cookies. Leluvia became not the rich and famous idea of holiday, but a stopover for the budget backpacker. By mid-June, we, with only 5 tools, hammer, saw, shovel, level, tape measure, had built our 1-room bungalow and moved in. Relatively speaking, it was the only palace on the island, though by American standards, it was a 450 square foot fishing cabin with 2 doors and 5 windows, a steady breeze, and a view of the sea. We had no running water, electricity, shower, or toilet. We washed ourselves in the guest showers and shared the outhouses. For light each night, we used a benzene lantern. We washed our dishes without soap in the ocean, using sand to scour the pots. We placed large barrels at 2 exterior corners of the house and caught rainwater as it fell from the gutters. On days of torrential downpour, we stood directly under the gutters and had the most wonderful fresh showers and shampoos imaginable. We ate mangoes standing in the rain, so the juices simply washed from our hands as we ate them. So anyway, that's an excerpt from one of her terrific stories in a really terrific book. So that's what I got. Happy to chat, John. You knew Susan, or, however.
I guess the question I have is, are you, obviously these stories are very, very personal. Are you thinking of putting them in a, some kind of book to be published, or are they just going to kind of stay, I guess I call it stay close to your heart?
Well, it's a good question. I haven't really thought about it. I think, I have written and will continue to write, about Susan, about, kind of, our life before, she got sick and stuff like that. So I think the poems I have now, I probably will put in a book at some point, possibly more of a chapbook. Depends on how many I end up with. The sort of rule of thumb is you probably need 3 or 4 times as many poems on a subject as you're going to put in a book to actually do a book. So, if you want to end up with 50, you better start with like 200, because 150 of them are not going to fit, or they're crap or whatever. So I think if I end up in a couple of years with, um, 50 poems about Susan, I'll probably do a chapbook and, of maybe 12 or 15. But if I end up with a lot more, maybe it'll turn into a book. But I think it will turn into something, as it sort of fills itself out. And as, I read them and I share them with people and I get feedback about, which ones are good and which ones are, not so good. But yeah, no, I think I will try to do something with it, because I think, it's a way of honoring Susan, and I think people will, people who are going through similar stuff will benefit.
Yeah.
I benefited from writing them, and I've, read them in small groups to workshop them a little bit. And people have given me good feedback about just
Yeah.
how they felt about hearing them.
Nice. And yeah, I think Susie sent Linda Granite Chief, and I read it, and then I think I sent her a picture of a flexible flyer saying, yeah, maybe I'm gonna come out. I'll try to do Granite Chief with a flexible flyer. I'll probably get down about 20 feet, veer off into the woods, but I'm ready. I'm ready for Granite Chief. No, it was great. That was a great story.
It's a great story, and she was fearless. Because the first time she went down it, we went down it together. She asked me, if I thought she could do it, and I did. But it was her first black diamond, and I think she just got, even though she had done pieces that were similar, and we took a way down that was a little less challenging, she got kind of freaked out by it, but we got down. And then, unbeknownst to me, she, there would be a part of the day where she would say, no, you go off and ski your stuff, and I'll stay here on the, green or blue slopes. But she secretly then went off to try it on her own, kind of a second time. And she was fearless. Yeah, she's,
Nice. Nice. Hey, Perry or Wendy, do you have any questions or comments?
I just, Ken, want to thank you. I don't have any specific questions, but
Sure.
Your new work is pretty raw, and thank you for sharing.
Yeah, I really admire your work, Ken. A Secret Never to Be Told and When the Parrots Came. Great poems. Great poems.
Thank you.
It's
Thank you.
wonderful. And I like just little notes that I put on Jack Gilbert. The reference to Jack Gilbert is one of my favorites. Not a lot of people read them, I don't think, but I enjoy them. He's got a poem, maybe you know it, Lost Hotels of Paris, which has been stuck in my head for forever since I was a kid. Just great stuff. Do you mind if I ask you,
No.
immigrants from where? I noticed in your bio.
Sure. Yeah. So my parents were both refugees from Nazi Germany. They left separately with their families. My mother left when she was 10 in 1936 with her parents and sister. And my father left in 1937 when he was 15 with his parents and brother. And they both settled in New York, and they met through the German Jewish community in New York. And then in the early 40s, and then my father went off to fight in the Pacific, came back, looked my mom up again, and they got married in 1948, and I was born in 51. Yeah, I would say Interestingly, my parents have both passed. My mom passed in 2019. And I just became a naturalized German citizen, which one can do under my circumstances. If your parents, I mean, this is true in other countries, but in Germany, if your parents were forced to leave because of, National Socialism, you can become a German citizen. It's one thing that they will give you back. And I would say that, because of Trump, I and a first cousin of mine, who is my father's brother's daughter, his older brother, both applied for German citizenship. I did it, I would say, kind of prompted by the whole rise of Trumpism, because I felt my grandparents, who were, middle class. My father's father owned a bakery. My mother's father was a butcher and cattle dealer, and they both had good middle class businesses, but they waited too long and they were unable to get any money out. So they had to come out. They were able to sell their businesses and get just enough to leave, but they didn't have enough. They had to start over again at, in their 40s, and so, I'm kind of the head of my family now, and I feel like I think it's very, very low probability, hope, knock on wood, that Trumpism will lead to something like National Socialism, but, we're sort of seeing some of the signs, unfortunately. And I just feel like I owe it, to my ancestors and to my family not to make the same mistake twice in, 2 generations. And so one way that I can, create some bank accounts overseas legally and, without a whole lot of taxation, is to get European citizenship. So I've gone ahead and done that.
Okay.
It's probably a longer answer to the question.
No, it's interesting to me.
Yeah. I am not alone. Under this particular law, German law, which allows, the ancestors going many generations down, to get citizenship. There are quite a large number in the last 4 years, of Jewish Americans who've applied for German citizenship. Ironic, but true.
Understandable.
Yep.
I think, I don't know what's going to happen, but I think I just want to go and just live on this tiny island in Greece where my grandmother was born, and forget about all this shit. But
yeah, which island?
It's a really, doesn't even show on some of the maps, but it's near Chios. So if you go southeast, right near Turkey, there's a bigger island, Chios, and there's a tiny little dot called Ignusa that my mother was born on.
Yeah, I've been to the island of Rhodes, which is near Turkey. It's a much bigger island, obviously.
Yeah, I've never been.
It's nice, and there's a little ferry that goes across from the city of Rhodes, which is the capital city, to a place in Turkey called Marmaris, which is below here. But it's a lovely part of the world. You could do a lot.
God. Oh yeah, it's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
The other reference, since you were talking about Greece, Laludia, that island, means flowers. You think?
Probably, I
In
mean,
Greek, luluthia are flowers. That's what I picked it up. I thought,
oh,
well,
nice.
are there a lot of flowers around the island?
So I've been to Fiji. I've been to Fiji a few times with Susan, but
Oh, not that particular.
not, yeah, because that was she went there, her husband was kind of a free spirit and kind of maybe a bit of a restless spirit. So they moved every 5 or even, five-ish years. He was Argentine, so they lived in the Bay and then went to Argentina and then to Fiji and back and forth. So he kind of picked out Fiji because he was a construction guy and he thought he could make a nice living there. But they started out, I think, in this sort of backpacker island and had a fishing boat and really truly lived barefoot. But it's a really tiny island, as she said, and as you've said about your island, not on the map. But then, after a while of that, they moved to, the bigger island where the capital, Suva, is. And that's where I think they spent kind of most of their time. And that's where we went, because that's where she had and still has her houses.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
So I don't want to interrupt the discussion. However, maybe we'll just end the recording here with official thank you to you, Ken, and John, to you, and hope we see everyone back next season. And I will stop the recording, but we can, if the two of you want to keep chatting, absolutely, please do.
Sounds good. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you for doing all this. I enjoy it.
Yeah, Wendy, fabulous, really. And John.
Yeah, Ken, those poems were so moving. Obviously, I know some of the subject material, and usually with I don't because of the connection, you're the only poet where I have this personal touch to know what you're talking about. So, very compelling, very visual, and I think you ought to start another business, rubbing feet or something. I think obviously you're. I'm sure someone's online saying, "Hey, I can rub your feet. I'm going to get you an 85." I don't know. You know how it is nowadays. Everyone's got a gimmick, but no, that was also a great story, great poem.
Thank you. Yeah, people. That's really the only one that I've published so far. But people like that one, and it was just very representative of the kind of fun that we had, even when the times were sort of tough, because it was fun doing that and fun talking about it, and it's again very emblematic of the kind of relationship we had, and so she was one of the most amazing people I've met. There's a story about Cher talking about the most amazing person she ever met, who was Sonny Bono. And most people don't think of him that way because, she had a relationship with Greg Allman and all sorts of, rock stars. But, the way she talks about him and the stories he told and how he claimed to be, like a direct descendant of Napoleon Bonaparte, that's how he got, Bono came from Bonaparte, all this kind of stuff. But to hear, she did a eulogy for him, when he sort of passed away. And I don't know if it's online or anything, but it's one of the most incredible, because it's Cher and she's incredible. And she's talking about this guy that she thinks was incredible, the Sonny Bono, and all the things he would tell her and how positive he was and how he convinced her that they could, write songs and sing music and all this kind of stuff. And she went along with it. And, Susan was like that. I mean, she was of that kind of caliber. You know, as a human being, that was just, you know, she had aspects of Cher and she had aspects of Sonny Bono too. Yeah, it was cool.
Yeah. Yep. All really fantastic stuff. Fantastic stuff. Yeah, we have company, so Linda couldn't be here on this. She's